One of the concerns that the Orion has had this semester has been accessibility to records of AS. Would you support the students being able to access the financial records of AS, including AS employees' salaries? And if not, why? And if we could go from left to right, please.
Well, so you're, can you repeat that? You want to?
Do you believe that students should have access to the financial records of AS, including AS employees' salaries? And if not, why?
It's important for us to know how much they do make, because I do think that it's important to have those records to know. At the same time, there is that barrier, that privacy barrier. But AS is, we control AS. Students are what fund associated students. So at the same time, I believe that we should be able to have access to those records and know exactly where our money is going to.
All right, as a AS employee for 2.5 years prior to this semester, I have experience with and I would have interest in this issue, knowing that my paycheck would be exposed. I have personally no problem with staff members, full-time staff, being having their exposure for their salaries, and I have no problem with full auditing and documentation for all the positions and anything where the money is going to. The only concern I would have would be individual students who maybe at the most make less than $3,000, $4,000 a year by themselves, but I support full staff disclosure and full disclosure of all where every money is being allocated.
I do support the Orion being able to, or students being able to access the salaries. I did read the Orion today, and the salaries are in there. So I did read the financial section of that. I would say, yes, I do support that. On the other hand, I would say that there is a fine line of what should be accessible, and I think it is important for you guys to know where your money's going. There's people that always ask, what does the Associated Students do? That it is a $30 million corporation, where does that money go? So it's a good way for people to become informed and for awareness for the Associated Students in itself.
I currently work as a student assistant in the Human Resources Office for the Associated Students, and I've seen the staff there go back and forth with this issue on whether to release, those records and whether not to, and so it's kind of hard working in the office. I'm torn, and I see the positives in knowing where our money's going, but at the same time, I also see that the Associated Students works hard, and the money, it's going to something positive. They're not being shady with where the money goes. They're just trying to make a living as well. Like we're in school to get jobs, get full-time jobs, make a living once we graduate. So those individuals are just making their living, and it's not in excess. Anyone, top executives at the AS aren't making insane amounts of money. It's all reasonable in this day and age.
If it's not in excess, then how do you defend them not releasing those salaries? Because like Tara said, we did do a story, but we were only provided ranges of salaries, which included $20,000 to $50,000 gap. For top executives, how can you justify in a student-run organization them not releasing those salaries?
That's their own personal, they're running the organization. I'm not, so I can't back up them on why they're not giving that information to the Orion or publicly. I can't defend that, but I'm just saying, they're trying to also keep their privacy in it as well.
As you've already heard from the candidates preceding me, it's a very difficult question. It's hard to answer it with just a yes or a no. I can respect the privacy needs of some of these executive career staff. At the same time, I can also understand why students such as yourself and general students, the public, would want to know those numbers. Unfortunately, I don't feel adequate to be able to just answer that question with a yes or no, but I can respect both sides of that argument.
Very similar, and I'm going to kind of touch on and elaborate on a few points that the other candidates have mentioned. And as Tara said, the salaries were released for the students, and my salary being one of those that was published as the current commissioner. And I think the accessibility to the financial information for the AS is important for all the students, because it is your money, it is your corporation, it is an organization that is there to serve you. Therefore, you should have access to those funds and to the information and those records. However, I do also agree with, as a couple of the other candidates have said, the respect to privacy for the individuals whose salaries are being released. I did see that my salary was released. I didn't know that was going to happen. I am okay with it. But it is having an issue that releasing any student's, private information, their financial information, can jeopardize the individuals, the career staff, and the other students. It can come back and impact them. And so kind of having that respect for that privacy if you're going to release someone's salary, I think is also very important. And I think to start with having that accessibility is building that relationship between and, continuing to build on the relationship between the Orion and the associated students, because those of us that are student government officers and the individuals that work within the AS and the Orion, you publish the information and the campus reads it and they respect what is written, and they will take into consideration what is written, and therefore having that relationship between two large bodies on campus that are well known and building on that to make it accessible and develop further.
Just building on to what they were saying, I do think that it should be published. Because it is the students' money. AS is by the students, it's run by the students, and it's for the students. But also there is that issue that should not be looked over, the issue of privacy, because it's a major thing. Like Desiree said, it's some, like, she didn't know, so there should be more awareness of that maybe.
I feel that exposing the amount of money that the AS employees make is good to, like the other candidates have said, see what our student body's money is going towards. But I do feel, and this is with having a lot of work experience and being a current employee right now, not with AS, but I'm an employee of Jessup University. I work in the sports department. I do feel that whatever money I do make should be my own personal knowledge, because the money I make goes to whatever I spend it on. That being, whether or not I spend it on textbooks or I spend it to help out my family back home. It's the money I make is the money I make, and how I use it is how I use it. And not to say that with being elected I would use that money irresponsibly or with any bad means, but I do feel that the money that I would make is my responsibility, making it mine personally.
Just before we continue, I wanted to clarify, we're not talking about individual student salaries. We're talking about people who make $50,000 plus and are in charge of implementing the budget.